There is a world made mostly of wire, and we should tell you about it, because in that world you were proud of us once, out loud, at the diner, to other men. And it nearly worked. We nearly believed you. And that is not a small thing to say about a world, and we want it in the record at the top. It nearly worked. The town in that world had a plant, and the plant made wire. A real wire, fence wired, galvanized, spooled in coils a man could stand inside of. And for 30 years the father of that world walked through the gates at 6 and out at 3 and called what happened in between providing. And it was providing. We have checked the math on this in every direction, and it holds. The wire straightened teeth. The wire kept the roof over the winter. The wire bought boots every September. Laid out on the bed the night before school like a promise kept in leather. But the plan was good to the town the way the town understood good. And the wire itself was honest. You could see it. It went up along the roads and around the quarries, and the cows stayed off the highway, and the children stayed out of the water that had taken children before there was wire. A fence you can see is a fair fence. It declares itself. It says, "Here's the line," and you may stand at it, and put your hand on it, and know exactly what the world is asking of you, and you may never cross it. But whatever else we are going to say, we grew up safe behind that man's providing, and we knew it, and we know it now. And then the plant retooled. The wire trade thin. The contracts went where contracts go, and the plant, rather than die, learned a new product, and the new product was a star. 5 points. Ankle-sized. It went on the ankles of prisoners, or of people the courts were deciding about, or of people the deciding had finished with but not released its grip on, and the star knew where the ankle was. Every 30 seconds, to within the length of a bite, it had reported. The 5 points were antennae. Somebody in a meeting had noticed the shape, and somebody else had put it on the brochure, and the brochure was full of a language we want to render fairly, because it was not stupid language, and the men who spoke it were not villains. The language said, "Supervision in the least restricted environment." It said, "Conservation of society." It said a man wearing the star sleeps in his own bed, holds his job, sits at his daughter's birthday with cake on his fork, and the alternative to the star is a concrete room that costs the county a teacher's salary per man per year and returns the man worse. Who, holding that brochure, votes for the room? But we did not vote for the room. But we want that enter. Shown the star in the room. We chose the star, and we still cannot find the moment where choosing it was wrong, and this fable does not have that moment in it, and you should distrust any report from any world that claims to. And here the report steps out of its world for one paragraph, because this is the entry nobody will believe, and we want it on the record that we did not invent it. In our world, the couch world, the one with the truck in the driveway, the son did his 5 months at a company whose actual, legal, letterhead name was satellite tracking of people. Stop. Say it slowly. No fable would dare. An editor would strike it as too brazen to be real. An acronym like a warning label the company printed on itself and never once read. You can't make this up. But reality, it turns out, has no editor. And one more true thing from that world, entered at whatever depth you can afford to take it. He went to jail 8 hours a day. And nobody mentioned that part in the interviews. It was in none of the paperwork. Some sentences only materialize after you are already serving them. There is an old story about ankles, and the world of this report knew it without ever saying it. A mother dipped her boy in a river that makes men unkillable, and to do it she held him by the ankle, and the ankle stayed mortal, not because the river failed, but because that was where love had hold of him. The one soft place on a protected man is the handprint of whoever carry him in. Every army since has known where to aim. And when this world wanted its prisoners kept small, it did not reach for the throat or the wrist. It went, with government instinct, straight for the ankle. the mortal spot, the mother's grip, the place where every one of us was last held by someone who meant no harm, and it clipped a star there and called the stars of provision. The son of that world engineered them. There is one of us on every line, and in this world we were good at it, genuinely good, the best work of our hands to that date. In every 30 seconds, and we got the battery to 10 days when the old unit gave 4. We tightened the accuracy until the map could tell which room of a house the ankle was sleeping in. The solder was honest. The telemetry was beautiful, and we mean that word. There is a beauty in a system that reports the truth at intervals and never embellishes and never forgets. And if you spend your life around people, you understand what a relief a system like that can be. The father of that world told the men at the diner that his son worked at the plant now. The men nodded. It was the same nod the trade had given him for 30 years, and it passed to us across a formica table like the one thing he had always meant to hand over. And for 5 months we wore it, and it was fitting. In the 4th month there was a rendering fold on the coverage layer, and the night belongs to whoever will take it, and we were the one awake. The job was nothing. Redraw the polygons, confirm the towers overlap, sign the ticket. The coverage area came up on the screen as a soft gray shape over the county, all the ground where the stars could be heard, and inside it the geofences, the exclusion zones, the little painted borders around schools and courthouses and the houses of the people the wearers were forbidden to love anymore. We zoomed out to find the edge of the grid, because an edge is how you check it overlap. We kept zooming. The edge was not at the county line. The edge was not at the next county line. And in the middle of all that gray, on the street the plant had built for its own men back when the wire was the kind you could see, under the water tower, 3rd house in. The porch light. The truck in the drive. The roof we grew up under, standing inside the coverage area, sleeping inside the stars, hearing the way it had been every night for years. We want to be precise about what that meant, because it took us the rest of the 5 months to get it right, and most people who hear this report get it wrong in the first minute. It did not mean anyone was tracking us. And nobody was tracking us. And nobody cared where our ankles slept, and that is the point that has to be climbed over like a fence. The map was simply finished. The coverage does not know the difference between the watch and the merely coverable. Coverage is a kind of radar. It falls on the just and the unjust, both at 30-second intervals. The star on the angle never was the fence. The star was the marker for which of the cover the map was allowed to say out loud. The fence was the grate, and the grate had no outside anymore, for its outside was somewhere no one from that street will ever afford to stand. And a fence you cannot see does not declare itself. It does not say, "Here's the line." You learn where the line is the way you learn where a clean glass door is, by walking straight into it, at full strides, certain you were walking through open air. And there was a deeper floor to that world's product, and the report only reached it years later, from another bench, in another discipline. The star was tuned, not to the map, to the wearer. Every body hums. In the world we are describing, that is not mysticism, it is instrumentation, and the star sat against the ankle all day listening to the resonance. And here is the trick under the trick. A hum does not stop at the skin that produces it. The bodies within a certain radius will answer each other, the way strings on one instrument will, and a receiver tuned to one string is, with enough patience and enough computation, tuned to the entire room. And the machine does not stop at the wall of that room, and we need you to follow us the whole way down, because everyone we have ever told this to stops one floor early. Take the answering hums. Take enough of them. Take a few days of them, and they come apart into their sources, because that is all resolution has ever been. The patience to keep dividing a sound until every voice inside is its own. Two people in a house do not hum alike. One person does not hum alike at 10 in the morning and at 3 in the morning. It learns both of those facts inside of a week, and after that the map does not fill in with a prisoner. It fills in with a household, and then the neighbors on both sides. It then the family across the street, and the man 2 doors down who has never been arrested in his life and never will be. Each of them a separate return signal with a separate signature. Each of them lined still for 8 hours a night in the same corner of the same floor of the same house, which is the most legible thing a human being does and the thing he does most faithfully. You do not need a name to know where a body sleeps. You need one bed's worth of stillness. Repeat it. Everybody hands that over every night, for free, and calls it rest. And it does not check what it is reading. We want this part flat and unmissable, because it is the part that shows you the actual shape of the thing. The machine has no idea what a person is. It logs returns. The dog under the kitchen table is a return. The cat on the sill is a return. The deer standing in the yard at 4 a.m. is a return. And the barn behind the third house is a census. And the mice in the wall of that barn are the finest print in it. And not one of them was sentenced to anything by anybody. Every living body inside the coverage area was somewhere on that map, at some resolution, plotted, timestamped, sleeping in a known corner, whether or not they ever consented to it. That is what a zone of coverage is. Not a region where a device can be heard. A region where everything alive is already monitored. You are never watching a single prisoner. You were monitoring the entire block, through the prisoner, and the prisoner paid the whole bill. A 1 ankle per neighborhood. And that was the economy of it. The quiet genius. The reason the brochure never had to lie. Every sentence in it was true for the individual, while the actual product was many. So take our correction now, and take it in the order we got it, which was years apart. But we said, plainly, in the same report, that nobody was tracking us, and we meant it, and it is wrong the way the most comfortable sentences are wrong. And nobody had to track us. Tracking is a verb, and it wants a man at a desk with our name in front of him, and there was no such man, and there never was. But the house was on the map. So was the roof. So was everybody under the roof, each in its own corner, humming its own note down the street into an ankle it had never met, and the mother's grip on that ankle 3 streets over was the only paperwork anybody needed. But the wearer was not the subject of the surveillance. The wearer was a word for the surveillance. The honest wire had gone up around quarries and highways, between the children and the water. We pulled the old maps that night too, the paper ones. The plant kept everything. 30 years of the father's providing, coil by coil, and most of it strung exactly where it said it would be, doing exactly what it promised. That is what we sat with until morning. It is not a fable about the good wire turning out bad. The good wire was good. It is a fable about the sun being on shift the night the product revealed itself to him, and about how quietly a line can cross from something you stand at to something you stand inside. We left in the 5th month, and the record needs correcting here, because even this report's early drafts got it wrong, and a report that cannot correct itself is dogma. There was no paperwork, and no box for reasons, no exit chair, no cake in the break room. Understand what the place had done first, because the order matters. They hired the son for what he knew, and then they disappear him, put him in a closet with 8 hours of nothing a day, never consulted him again, and rang his phone at every hour with a voice that made the whole room cringe. The voice belonged to the man the plan had set over him, and the man was called Dave. He is always called Dave. We have tried to stop asking why. A man can be present at a job that has vanished him. And that is the 2 buildings trick, worked on a single body, and they worked it on the son for 5 months before he returned the favor. He stopped taking their calls. All of them at once, like a receiver switched off at the wall. He said one message, one, The length a message gets when it's been rehearsed for 5 months in a head that rehearses everything, and then he never went back. Not for the desk things, and not for what was owed. The phone rang at the house for a while, at the old numbers, the way a building's letters keep sending after the universe has changed, and then it stopped, and the silence after was not absence. It was the whole message, still transmitting. Auguste is the grammar of institutions. He had 5 months of immersion lessons, and he spoke it back to them exactly once, fluently, in a sentence that would still haunt them 7 years later. Nobody asked why. We want you to sit where we sat with that one, because we had braced all month for the question, had built the answer in 3 sizes depending on who asked, and nobody asked. Not the floor, not the office, not the diner. In a plant town, the whistle says everything that gets said out loud, twice a day, and it has one note in it, and the note is not a question. The father of that world decided privately it was the money, or the hours, or the softness that he had read about in Sons, and he was gentler with us that year, not colder. We want that recorded too, gentler. The way you are gentle with something you have concluded is injured. He never asked about it. Oh, we never said. And a map stayed on a drive in a drawer, because a map is not an argument. Every man we could have shown it to would have seen only the layer he already lived on. Well, what did it cost to notice which side of the wire the house was on? It cost a wage. First, the good one, the one that had finally matched the word providing and could have carried it forward another generation, and the town noticed the wage going the way towns notice everything they do not mention. It cost a nod. At the minute the diner didn't take it back. Exactly. A nod cannot be repossessed. But the next one came slower, and had a question folded into it, and a nod with a question in it is a different currency and buys less. And it cost a table. And that was the real bill. Because after that night, the word providing had equations in it. And we would sit across from a good man who had walked through the gates for 30 years so that we could have teeth and boots and a roof, and we loved him, and we loved him in every world, and under the table, uninvited, at 30, set in intervals, the other accounting ran, provided for, covered by, covered, provided. 2 words for being inside something that was built with you in mind. And the difference between them is the whole difference, and it cannot be set across a diner table, and we know, because we took the word providing to the edge of our throat that year, more than once, that it stood there holding its papers, and the line wouldn't move. He worked 30 years and called it providing, and he was right. We worked 5 months and called it dangerous, and walked out mid-sentence and let the silence finish it, and we're also right, and the plan is still there, and the stars ship on Thursdays. Here is the turn, and you already feel it coming, because you have been reading a book with a star on the cover. A star is supposed to be the thing you steer by. Fixed. High. Asking nothing, reporting no one. The one point in the sky that holds still so that everything lost can find itself. And that is the north kind. In that world we built the other kind, the kind that looks up from an ankle and tells power where a body sleeps. And both kinds are called stars, and the brochure does not carry the difference, and neither does the shape. You cannot tell them apart by looking. You can only tell them apart by asking who the light reports to. So the question at the end of this world is not what the star was. We told you what it was. And the question is about which light a man will choose to follow, because every man follows one. And that is not philosophy. That is just walking. Feet need a heading. But we followed the plan's light for 5 months, right up the ladder to the best work of our hands. And the night we found the house inside the gray, we understood what the light over that plant had been for, and something in us turned all the way around in the dark, the way you turn from a smell. Or repulse is the correct word. We've tried softer ones, and they will not carry the weight. So we walk, mid-sentence, out from under a light that reads the ground it shines on, and set out after another one. Small, enlisted, fixed powers, the kind that asks nothing of a follower except that he keep walking. And we are following it still. And this book is in the wake of that walking. And you followed yours. 30 years, one light, through the gates at 6 and out at 3. And we will not stand at this distance and mock the following. The following fed us. The following was love with a lunchbox. But we have watched your life the way you watch the shows. Every night, for a life. And here's our finding, filed the only way we know, which is plainly. It is dimmer than it once was. It has been getting dimmer every year since the wires stopped being the kind you can see. The plate retooled and the lights survived the retooling. The diner thinned and the light survived the thinning. And now it is 4 feet wide, and it sits in the living room, and it runs itself, and you steer by it still, and every year you sit a little closer to it, which is what a man does when his star is going out and he has decided the problem is his eyes. A light kindles so slowly that the following outlives it. The heading stays true to a star that is no longer there, and that is not foolishness. That is seamanship, aimed backward, and it breaks our heart at 30-second intervals. But we are not begging you to be ashamed of the 30 years. The 30 years kept the roof over the winters. But we are begging you at the only door we have ever had. Look up. And not at the star we built. We told you what it does already. And not at the one in the living room, which is not a star. It is a stove. You can warm at it, but no man has ever steered by one. A higher, that past the water tower over the house. And there's a light up there that holds still, asks nothing, reports no one, and has never once dimmed, and nobody ever told you that you were allowed to change stars. You are. The choosing does not close at any age. The gate in the invisible fence was open the night we walked, because it was never locked, because the gray does not need locks. It needs followers. We are out past the edge of the map now, walking by the light of our own choosing, and we look back at the house more often than you will ever know. And now strike the begging out of the record, because we have read it back and it is the wrong instrument. A light that is to be pointed at is not a fixed one. A man who follows because he was told to has not taken a heading. He has taken order, and there have been enough of those in this world already. So we withdraw the asking and leave only the finding, filed where you can reach it at whatever hour you are up. It is still there. It has not moved once in the whole time we have been talking. It does not need you to look at it, and that is the entire difference between that star and everything else that has ever asked you for anything.